And as a speaker coach, that is what I teach people. On the pause, close your mouth, wait, let the next thought arrive, speak it.
Hello all, and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State podcast. I am your host, Dr. Kien, aka Dr. D, triple board certified MD and performance and longevity expert. And I just want to say thank you for being you. Thank you. We've made it over a year, over 50 episodes of the Thrive State podcast. And it is you, the listener, who has given us some really great reviews and really allowed this podcast to grow. Now, if you're new to this podcast, welcome, welcome, welcome. This is a podcast where I bring the greatest minds, experts, speakers, thought leaders on how to elevate ourselves as people, how we get to the thrive state. So I bring people in that speak of nutrition, of mindset, of our thoughts, of exercise. I bring in artists and leaders in their space. And today I bring in somebody who is really a champion and thought leader in her world. Her name is Carolyn Goiter. She is actually an award-winning speaker. She is a TEDx speaker with over 9 million views on YouTube. She is a voice expert and free-time author. You'll find her in media all around the world, but in particular, British media. And you've seen her interview some of the best A-list celebrities out there, including Helen Mirren. But here's a little bit more about Carolyn that you might not know. She's actually has a global reputation as a speaker and a voice coach, which is actually built on her warm, engaging, relaxed, and highly practical style. And her work is actually sought after by people in the television space, like broadcasters and TV anchors, but also in the acting space and with teachers and people in the corporate sector. She's worked at the Central School of Speech and Drama as a voice coach for over 10 years before launching her own company. She's regularly sought after by the media as an expert in her field, and her work has been featured on television and in numerous national and international newspaper articles. Now, I really want you to pay attention to today's conversation because it not only pertains to speaking and finding your voice, but it has implications to your health as well. I talk to you in my book, Thrive State. And hey, listen, if you haven't picked up a copy of it, pick your copy up at thrivestatebook.com. And in that book, I talk about becoming the most authentic version of ourselves, becoming the true us, becoming the true you is always your best medicine. Because when you can live your life as you activate the biology of longevity and performance. And guess what also happens? If you could find your voice on stage, when you could find out how to turn off the fight or flight response in our body, what you're doing is eliminating your body of stress hormones. You can increase immunity in your body, decrease inflammation when you can master that skill. You're going to learn all of that and so much more on this podcast. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me introduce you to Carolyn Goiter. Carolyn Goiter, welcome to the Thrive State podcast.
Hey, Kien, how you doing?
This is awesome. I really love the fact the technology has allowed me being able to meet such extraordinary people from around the world. I know you're over in London.
I'm in a very dark, cold London. Yes. I'm envious of your sunshine. It looks marvelous.
Yes. I am in sunny California. Now, my audience knows this, but we play a game called 5 to Thrive. And this is just to lubricate our conversation a little bit, get to know you a little bit better. Remember, each answer is going to be less than 1 minute long, and it is tallied up. And there are points assigned to each answer. And if you reach 5,000 points, you win dinner with me the next time we meet in person. All right. So
no pressure. Okay.
Are you ready to play? Let's start.
I am ready.
For 5 to Thrive. Question number 1 is, what was your childhood favorite activity?
I loved riding horses.
Oh, wow.
And that was incredible because you learn about connection. You learn about reading another creature, understanding how it's feeling. It's really bad for your lower back. And I have been struggling ever since with poor lower back posture and a lack of diaphragmatic breathing as a result. But we will go there.
Oh, we will go to diaphragmatic breathing. Awesome. 1,005 points, already leading the pack here. Question number 2 is, what was your proudest moment?
I'm going to give 2 answers. One, of course, is the birth of my 2 kids, right? Achievement. In my work life, producing 3 books and a TED Talk, which has been viewed 9 million times. I'm pretty proud and also slightly awed by that.
Yeah, right. I want to dive into that a little bit later on. Question number 3 is, what is your superpower?
My superpower is seeing in people what they can become in terms of their presence.
Ooh, beautiful. Question number 4. What is your why?
Helping people find their voices in the world and their confidence, because I believe everybody has something really amazing to offer.
I'm going to dive into that a little bit later on, a little more too. Question number 5, and you're doing great, is how would you like to be remembered?
As the person who helped normal people find their voices, because I think that the politicians and the movie stars, they've had help for a long time, but most normal people haven't. And I think that's a shame. That's
beautiful. Well, thank you so much. Let's tally up the points here. And of 5,000 points, you've got 5,737 points. You win the 5 to Thrive. The next time I'm in London or the next time you're in LA, let's get together for dinner on the show. But thank you so much. I mean, it was super fun. Applauses.
Same day.
I need to get an applause meter in the podcast. But you know what? Our editor, Dasan, can you put in some applause right now? Thank you. So let me ask you, you lived a childhood life, you love riding horses. How does that girl become someone to have discovered the superpower of being able to share, bring out the voices in other people?
It was a very curious pathway, and I won't give you the full story, but I ended up at Oxford. I studied English literature, and you do a lot of Shakespeare on those courses, and I loved Shakespeare. And so I thought, well, maybe I want to be an actor. This was a bad idea. And I found myself at drama school, and I looked up at the notice board, and it said acting. I was like, good. And then it said voice, movement. And there were a few accent classes as well. And I looked at the board, and as someone who'd studied English Lit, I had no idea why we were doing voice and movement. But over the 3 years, I didn't really fall in love with voice and movement, but I understood that it was my block. Because they kept saying to me, you're in your head. You're in your head. You have no presence. You've no vocal resonance. You're not listening. Your breathing is stuck in your chest. Your diaphragm is like a shelf. And because I'm a bit persistent, I kept going. And I started to realize that what they were saying I couldn't do was just a set of habits. And when my mindset flipped, I kind of wanted to share that with everybody else.
Yeah, beautiful. You bring about a concept that, I don't think many people know of, and I can only speak personally, is I don't feel like I knew my voice until pretty recently. And so let me ask you, what do you think the prevalence of that problem is for people? And how do you think people seem to have lost their voice going through society?
Gosh, this is fascinating. I mean, I definitely didn't find my voice until I'd done a master's in voice before I found my voice, which is kind of crazy. The reason I think we lose our voices, so what is every toddler has perfect alignment within reason. Of course, there are counter arguments to that, but most toddlers have great alignment, free breathing, and powerful voices, right? So that evidence suggests to me that something happens at school. We sit at a desk, we carry heavy bags, the teacher says, "Oh, you be quiet at the back," and our voices move up out of the kind of the power center in our guts, which is the lungs, the intercostal muscles, the diaphragm, all the real support muscles that produce powerful voices, and get stuck in our heads and our throats because we forget that there's a connection. And so we go to the workplace and we continue to sit at laptops and carry heavy bags and not make too much noise. And then we check our phones and we breathe into our upper chests. And by the time we're 30, like I was, your voice it's a shadow of its former self. And it's such a shame. And it happens to anybody who isn't in their bodies, really. People who do qigong or yoga or run or dance are often more able to access that power. But lots of people don't have time to do that.
That's a really great observation, and I want people to really understand that. I have 2 daughters. I have a daughter of my own who is 1 year old now. And And she is just so precious. You could just see that she's completely present. She's full of joy, enjoys her natural state. Then I have a bonus daughter who's 8 years old, who happened to have already picked up some habits, and you could start to see maybe lost a little bit of our voice. And certainly I work with a lot of people who felt like, you know what, they never really got to live the life that they wanted to live. And you mentioned it in the classroom, but you know, for a lot of these people, losing their voice, at least for me, was at home. You know, I was a refugee from Vietnam before I moved to the States. And my mom said, you have three options. You know, when you get older, Kien, you could be a doctor, an MD, or a physician.
She was clear.
Right. I wasn't really given any other options, or so I felt. So it appears that maybe sometimes we lose our authentic selves when, you know, our surroundings are suggesting that maybe we should be something that we're not.
And I suppose that's a really good point. And for adults wanting to find their voices, I think there's often something about giving that child what that child needed then. Kind of, it's never too late to have a happy childhood. It's never too late to go back and give that child their voice.
Oh, that's amazing. I wasn't going to get to that part of the question in terms of your technology and your methodology, but is some of this work that you help your clients do also to maybe do some of the inner healing of childhood wounds?
So I'm not a therapist, and, you know, for all the reasons, you know, medically, if someone presented anything that was in any way a trauma, that's not what I work with. But if someone says to me, when I was 13, everybody laughed at me when I did the presentation in class, then I've trained in neurolinguistic programming, and it's a really good support to what I do with voice work. And you can go back and make the movie of that 13-year-old in class. And give that 13-year-old the resources that they needed. And it's just really updating the file.
Right.
And it's a very practical strategy. And as I read about modern neuroscience, actually NLP, although it's been criticized, the neuroscience is starting to find some quite good support for some of the exercises that happen in neurolinguistic programming. So it's interesting to see that coming.
You know, why I wanted to bring you in on this show is to let people understand that there are methodologies and skills that people can pick up, you know, because when you go on stage, people are probably very nervous. They are probably feeling a little bit scared, and they might be scared to share their authentic voice. Biologically, not having confidence or being in that stress state actually activates stress hormones in our bodies and things like that. And so some of the techniques I'm pretty sure you work with your clients actually, you know, whether you know it or not, actually helps regulate our nervous system, actually improves our biology. So I ask you this. First question is, when people come to you, what type of problems are they having, and what are really the underlying things? And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. You know, I'm a longevity and performance doctor. So people come to me and they're like, okay, well, I want to perform better in bed or at work, and I want to live forever. That's the surface lying thing. But underneath, you know, I get down to the root of, you know, them really loving themselves and living a life that's true and congruent to them. So very similarly, what are the people coming to you on a surface level for? And deep down, what exactly are some of those problems that you're solving to get them to some of those other goals?
This episode of the Thrive State podcast is brought to you by the Thrive State Accelerator. The Thrive State Accelerator is actually a home course that I developed using the exact same techniques I work with my celebrity clients, CEOs, and executives on how to get them to the Thrive State. The Thrive State Accelerator teaches you how to master your 7 bioenergetic elements. That's sleep, nutrition, movement, stress and emotional mastery, relationships, our thoughts and mindset, as well as purpose. In this Thrive State Accelerator, you're also going to get a bonus module on optimization. That's how I talk about supplementation, peptides, all the optimization techniques I use with my clients to get them to the Thrive State. Now, for some of you who are just joining us for the first time, you guys might be wondering, what is the Thrive State? Well, the Thrive State is actually the energy, the epigenetic environment we give to ourselves, telling our DNA how to act and how to respond. And if we want optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, if we can master these 7 bioenergetic elements, our ability to have those 3 things that we just said, optimal health, longevity, and peak performance is at its greatest. And it also prevents you from getting chronic symptoms like brain fog, being overweight, feeling sluggish, acne, pain, all these chronic symptoms, as well as preventing you from getting chronic disease. So getting to that thrive state is really getting to that state to master being that very best version of yourself so you could show up for you, for your family, for your business, everything that's important to you. So go ahead, check it out right now at kienvu.com/accelerator and use coupon code podcast25 for 25% off. Now back to the podcast.
So the really common surface level problem which presents is a fight or flight problem.
Yeah.
Right. I have a big pitch. I have a job interview. I have to walk out on stage in front of 4,000 people and I speak too fast. I mouth breathe and I rush. My voice shakes. My hands shake. I go blank. My mouth gets dry. It all is a blur. I can't remember what I said. Fight or flight. Right. And so part of it is about helping someone self-regulate, pause, ground, find good alignment, know how to breathe in a way that allows the system to feel safe rather than that kind of panic breath that people do on stage. That's what presents. But I think, like you're saying, ultimately, it's about finding congruence. It's about someone feeling that they have permission to walk out on that stage and be who they are. And that's a really lovely thing to help someone find. I think it sounds like you're doing it in a medical way. But for me, it's the greatest pleasure when someone steps out on stage and they just are them. Yeah. And the audience love it.
Ooh, I'm getting goosebumps. And I get goosebumps when there's a vibration that is just like in resonance with what we do. And I think that's what, for so many people, teaching different crafts, at the end of the day, it's really about becoming who we are authentically and showing up in that way. Because in that sense, at least in the medical world, that's when we could be less free of some of the diseases that we have because we are just incongruent. We try to be someone we're not. We build up emotions of stress, and that emotion of stress actually translates the biology of inflammation, translates the biology of dropping immunity, and eventually getting chronic disease.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's pretty neat. Two different fields completely, but the solution underneath is knowing who we are authentically and showing up in that way in our power.
It's something that I think our modern world with gadgets and devices and comparison is leaching out of people. That's the trouble.
Now, I want to ask you a little bit about your TEDx talk. When you gave the talk, and for anybody who wants to know, her TEDx will be linked down to the podcast. Did you have an expectation that it would be watched over 9 million times?
So I was working with a really wonderful coach in the US, in DC, called Denise Graveline, and she has very sadly died, which I'm still devastated about. She ran a website called The Eloquent Woman, and she coached me through the talk. And she said, as a speaking coach, you really cannot mess this up, which was true. Career ending. So in a way, if only 10 people watched that talk, it didn't bother me. What I needed it to be was a fair representation of me as a speaker at my best on stage. And however many people watched it, I didn't really mind. If 10 people watched it and said, God, she's not a very good speaker, that would have been a problem. I had no idea that 9 million people, more than the population of Norway, would have watched that talk. I mean, that's insane, right?
What do you think about that talk resonated with people the most?
So the thing that people are curious about, curiosity, as you know, is a very powerful emotion. And I was on stage with a half-naked man's torso, shaped like a wardrobe. And I think when people click on the thumbnail first, they go, why is that woman on stage with a half-naked wardrobe? And so that takes them into the talk. And then I think I was talking about something that I'm really genuinely quite passionate about. And it came from a place of quite deep vulnerability because I really messed up on stage. I am the teacher who really messed up. And I think maybe that keeps people. But mostly it's about the half-naked man, I think.
So for those who have not watched it yet, I mean, that's a cliffhanger there. Please check out the TEDx talk that you have. My next question to you is this. You teach gaining some confidence in the voice in your talk. And I really loved your last tip, which is really kind of the inspiration of what you want to deliver. Can you explain a little bit about that very last tip?
What's so beautiful about voice work is so much of this is in the ancient world. And spirari, the spirals, respirari, to breathe, kind of gives us a sense of the breath coming in and the breath going out of the lungs.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, inspiration suggests a spark of something genius coming into you. And because it's also related to spirari, the spiral, it suggests that as we breathe in, ideas come in.
Mm-hmm.
And as a speaker coach, that is what I teach people. On the pause, close your mouth, wait, let the next thought arrive, speak it. And that's what good speakers tend to do on stage. They're not 4 thoughts ahead of themselves, chest breathing, panicky, adrenal. They're delivering a thought, they're pausing, they're watching the audience, they're taking a nice low centered diaphragmatic breath in, usually through the nose, and then they deliver the next thought. Now that can happen quite fast. It doesn't have to be a slow process, but it is just about really understanding that the in-breath is your control moment by moment as a speaker on stage. It's your breaks, it's your pause. And that changes everything.
That is really beautiful. I would love to kind of dissect that a little bit more, because I want to get into, you talk about fight or flight. In my medical practice, I talk about fight or flight also, because when we are living in that world of the sympathetic nervous system, again, we are thinking there's a saber-toothed tiger right behind us. And so things happen to our biology. So from a biological standpoint, whenever we are stressed out or in fight or flight, our bodies actually increase inflammation, lower immunity, puts us prone to getting chronic disease. And for those people who want better performance, that goes down the drain for that. And so I'd love to tap into some of the techniques that you were just mentioning a little bit more in terms of how to start regulating some of that. I hear you had mentioned the pause. I hear you've mentioned the breath. Can we go into a little bit more detail of each one of those things, and maybe then talk about any other additional tips that you might recommend, beginning with the pause?
A lot of the good technique for this comes from acting training. And actors spend a year of their drama school life lying on the floor learning how to breathe. And one of the things that actors are taught to do, which is just so simple for everybody to do, and if you've got a heart rate monitor, it has an immense effect on your heart rate variability. So simple, just to put hands on tummy and breathe out and feel the tummy squeeze back to the spine. Just let the air go out through the mouth, and then wait for the breath to come back in through the nose. And then let the breath go out again, this time for 6 through the mouth. And you can keep going with that. And the thing that really helps people as an exercise working on a speech is to do this. You say, so if I'm going to say, hello, my name's Carolyn Goiter, I do one word, one breath first. Hello. Hello, my name's. Hello, my name's Caroline. Now, if you do that for a few lines of your speech, what you find is that each line just kind of sits, because what you're teaching your brain and your breath to do is match the need for the length of the line to the breath that comes in, which is what actors are taught. If you've got a 12-line sonnet and you want to do it on one breath, you better learn to match your breath to thought. But for all of us as speakers, if we match the breath that comes in to the thought that we speak, we're in control. It's like being Roger Federer on stage.
Oh, that's amazing.
And it's such a lovely place to be. Anybody can do that exercise.
That's amazing. I want to let people know this is a great hack. You could actually hack your nervous system, because if you think of your breath when you're actually running away from the saber-toothed tiger, very shallow, very hurried. And if you're actually scared, you may notice that your breath goes into that form. Now, what you're teaching people, to actually notice that breath, you have to exhale being longer, wait for the inhale to come in. You're slowing that down. So imagine that form of breathing. You will not be breathing that way if there was a saber-toothed tiger behind you. And so that's a way of using your physiology, the mechanics of your physiology, to actually hack your biochemistry. So that's a very, very beautiful technique. And what I also love is matching that breath with your thought, which brings in the concept of intention. And if you can have a moment to kind of take in your intention, when you are actually have that intention, you actually change the physiology of your body to become more calm, more relaxed, and more compassionate to other people.
The nerd in me, and this, I don't know medically how this stands, but I was at a voice conference where someone did a talk about the diaphragm and said the diaphragm responds differently in terms of contraction to every emotion that we have.
100%. So that's one great point. If you guys take anything from this podcast, know this. Every pattern of breathing is matched to an emotion. So when you're feeling down, one of the very things that you can kind of do is start to shift the way you breathe to shift your emotion. And here's another thing. The pattern of movement and posture also matches your emotion as well. So, they did a study over at Harvard where if you were to stand in a Superman power pose, whether you're a man or a woman, it would actually lower your cortisol or your stress hormones. And for a man or a woman, they both need testosterone. It actually elevates testosterone, which elevates confidence. So your breath, your movement and posture, and your emotions are all energetically connected. So if you want to hack one of them, you can actually do certain things with each one. Either get in a certain pose, change the way you breathe, and you also change the way that you feel.
It's magic. And I don't know why we're not taught it at school. That's the weirdest thing, isn't it?
It is pretty weird. So let me ask you, the people that you're working with now, I know you work with news anchors, you work with, celebrities. I know you've had a conversation with Helen Mirren, but now you want to teach the quote normal person how to find their voice. Tell me about what you have on the pipelines, because I know you have several books out as well as a few amazing courses as well.
So Gravitas is the book that is all about finding your voice in the corporate sector. And I wrote it because people kept saying to me, he or she needs more gravitas. Find Your Voice is the book that really riffs off some of the stuff we've been talking about, how you take the instrument that is the voice and find more calm, more confidence, more ease as a speaker, and how you really get congruent as a speaker. Of course, I was on stage as a speaker a lot pre-COVID. And then when COVID hit, we thought, what do we do here? So we created a digital course called Master Your Meetings, which is a 2.5-hour self-paced. Really, it's the distilled version of what I teach in corporate trainings. And it will help you go from panic to power, anxiety to authority before those big meetings and pitches. And I'm really proud of it, but it has been, oh my gosh, a labor of love. I'm learning about tech. We are so nearly there.
That's so beautiful. And whether or not you're in the corporate workspace, a stage speaker, or just as a normal person that wants to conquer fight or flight in you, I would recommend, everybody take that course. How do people find that course? And how do people find out more about you online?
It's all on my site, carolyngoiter.com, which is Goyder, because I know it's a bit of a nasty one to spell. And then equally, I'm at Carolyn Goiter on Insta, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and YouTube. Such
awesome information, Caroline. And I'm going to ask you my last question here. Of everything that you've done, NLP, your acting work, what has been your best medicine?
Alexander technique.
Oh, tell us about the Alexander technique.
It's a life-changing discipline created by someone called FM Alexander, who was a speaker who kept losing his voice. He realized his alignment, his posture was the issue, and he self-taught himself to find the perfect posture of a toddler. And it is truly life-changing. It helped me find my alignment, my ease, my voice. And I suspect it, for all the reasons you've described, helped my immune system as well, because I felt so much calmer. It's magic.
Amazing. Well, I hope people are really excited about your work as I am. I know I want to probably take that course because I am a sponge when it comes to techniques to help fight the fight or flight. I want to probably learn this Alexander technique from you later on as well. But Carolyn Goiter, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being on the Thrive State podcast.
My total pleasure, Kien. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Thrive State podcast. And if this podcast is bringing a lot of value to you, if you find that your life is just improving with this podcast, that your life is getting to the next level, please consider supporting it. And here's a few ways you can do so. You can do so by liking this video and commenting on this video, and also sharing this video with your friends and family. Another thing you can do is go to ratethispodcast.com kienvu.com/thrivestate. Go ahead and leave us a 5-star review there. It will really, really help this show grow. And this will give me more time so that I could actually give more content to you, just like you got in this episode. And if you haven't already picked up a copy of my book, Thrive State, Your Blueprint for Optimal Health, Longevity, and Peak Performance, you can pick it up now. It became a #1 new release in longevity. Go to thrivestatebook.com. And if you enjoy the book, please consider leaving us a review as well. And the last thing you can do, if you're liking everything here and you want to work more closely with me as well as my team to get you into the Thrive State, go to kienvu.com/accelerator and consider joining the home course, the Thrive State Accelerator. It's really the course that I use. It's the concepts that I use personally when I work with CEOs, celebrities, and my high-profile clients to get them to the Thrive State. Again, the Thrive State Accelerator at kienvu.com/accelerator. And because you're a listener of this podcast, I want you to save 25% by using the coupon code podcast25. I hope we continue to give value to you. And remember always, you are your best medicine.